Blessed love, I am the Honorable Priest Isaac. I am an official priest within the realms of Rastafari of the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress. I also hold a certification in the craft of Astronomy from Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Our universe and its makeup has always been an intriguing subject for humankind. Astronomy is the study of everything in the universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Ancient astronomy is similar, but pays special attention to the physical and spiritual values of stars, planets, moons, and other celestial objects. It also brings in the terrestrial component, being things on an earthly plane, such as plants, human organs, and connects them to the heavenly bodies. In this course, you will learn the makeup of various planets and stars, how to locate them in the night sky, along with their associated constellations. You will also be taught about the earliest civilizations known for their astronomical comprehension, namely Kush, also known as ancient Ethiopia, Kemet, called Egypt today, the Dogons, and the Bozos, as well as the civilization of Sumer. You will also learn about black holes, their nature and origin, as well as how the ancients viewed them. Ancient astronomy is the mother of archaeoastronomy and astrotheology. Both subject areas are covered by the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Sign up today. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com, for more information. Yes, Royal Family, blessed love, give thanks for your presence, give thanks for each and every one with us. I must say, welcome to Rastafari School. This is the moment where, we all are in class. This is the moment where it's time for some higher education. This is Rasta Roundtable. Let me say blessed love to the full family wherever you are internationally. It is a joy, it is an honor that you would have taken your time to come and sit and sup with us this evening. Honorable Priest Isaac here with you, your humble host. We have the full all-star crew with us. We have King Cypher Selassie, Ras Cypher Selassie, Ras Isern and Koma Dread should be in the foreground. And we intend to have a wonderful meditation, reasoning. We are continuing the discussion as it relates to Arius, the Nicene Council, but I think we're more going into the whole concept of the Serapis and these different things, but I'll see where we go this evening. The previous program we had, Ras Kwame and King Anko Madrid really came to a crossroads where they decided that, okay, enough of the talking and the pretty sound, let us bring the sources so we can see exactly what is fact and what is fictional. So I'm looking forward to that. My chalice is already packed, and as I mentioned that, let me just give thanks and praises to Adamawe Haile Selassie, Holy King Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari. The psalmist says, "What shall I render unto the Lord for all his good benefits towards I? I shall take the cup of salvation and call upon his terrible and mighty name. The Holy Trinity, the power and might of the Holy Trinity. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. Nekusa Nagas, Adamawe, Daniel, Savior of the world. Family, from my heart, let's exalt his name. King Selassie I, Jah,
Rastafari.
Yes, Royal Family, blessed to everyone. King Cypher Selassie, you are on the board. How is it with the eye?
Yes, beloved, give thanks. Everything is full. Glad to be in the company of each and every one again.
True. Give
And,
thanks.
and the audience, we give thanks. Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Love and light.
True, sorry, pardon me. True. And as I said, we have Ras Isern as well. I know Anko Madrid will be coming in soon, but he is not there. I expect Ras I Donis Tafari. Okay, he just stepped in as well. So, and we might be missing Ras Kwamai this evening. You know, Ras Kwamai is an executive diplomat on many levels, so sometimes we have to kind of excuse the good brother. But give thanks, you know, to be honest, I wouldn't doubt that he's listening. Well,
let me just say a few words on his behalf, could I?
Of course. In fact, I was just going to ask you to bless the people.
Yeah. Well, actually, Kwame position at his workplace now is changing. He's going into supervisory level.
That's why I said
so
executive
he's now
diplomat.
engaged in some training and so on. That really put him his time really off, you know. So for the listeners, that would be the situation where Raskwama is absent.
True. Respect. Give thanks for the eye. And as I said, Rasai Adonis, the rabbi, is here, and Anko Madrid is here. But you know, in the interest of time, because we say we're gonna put some discipline on our to make sure we get it out the right way, and we should be sealing at approximately 9:30. So you know, it's all about the meat of the matter and the crux of the matter as such. And I think I would want our good brother Anko Madrid to lead it off this evening. As I said, the previous program we had, the last two programs, about 3 programs, and I did a few one-away programs on the whole concept of Arius and Serapis and the Nicene Council. I must say our Rastafari roundtable gathering, them reasonings were to me the highest of the reasoning when you hear all the different perspectives. And I was really looking forward to tonight, where we decided that because even the sentiments that Brother Ankoma had the last time, you know, if you read the comments, I noticed a few people were saying that we were jumping here and there subject-wise. From my humble point of view, I think all things were still related, but I get the point. I see where they were going. And so I think this evening's program should be a very interesting and important program as we start to delve into what we consider as the source, or, you know, where did you get that fact from? And let's look at the thing on a realistic level. So I'm just going to, oh yes, Brother Ras Adonis, blessed love to the eye as well, as the eye showed up on the board there. Love to the eye. And again, in all interest of time, I'm going straight to Anko Madrid, my Lord. I pray all is well, and just looking for the eye to start the batting, as they say in the cricket game.
Rastafari, blessed Lord. That's the reason I ain't sure about the battle start.
The batting, I said.
Batting.
You're right.
The
batting.
Oh, the batting. I first in the crease.
Yeah, vernacular.
All right. I will find they ain't hit me no spin ball or nothing like that.
Right. You need to share some things.
I good for now. I just go explain which part we is right now in the conversation. So I give thanks. Yes, I am. So far when we was reasoning about, we come down to what was the contention regarding Arius and who is this Arius figure within the history of I suppose you said the history of Christianity coming down, you know what I mean? And then, but I realize we have a difference of understanding amongst I and I in terms of what was the actual topic, or what is the primary concern of the Council of Nicaea, but like what it pertained to. And then within talking, and because I end up saying that some of the ideas that I hear from possibly from Ras Isern and Ras Kwame, it sounds like if the origin of some of the ideas was from the brethren Walter Williams, the elder Walter Williams, in a book that he put out called The Historical Origins of Christianity. You know what I'm saying? So that, but then me and my personal research now, I see where maybe some of the things with Walter Williams, some of his assertions that he bring forward in his scholarship, instead of taking them wholesale, maybe we should put a little more scrutiny on them. You understand what I'm saying? So within that now, I feel like just from the front, they have about 3 assertions made by Walter Williams that, in my perception, it kind of outlandish. I would say it would be outlandish, right? And the 3 that come to my head immediately is, one, he said that that hieroglyphics undeciphered, and I think that's patently incorrect. 2, he said that how Christianity as a religion is formed before Judaism and Islam in his chronology of events, right? And 3, another main point, which is kind of very serious, is that he have an origin for the New Testament scriptures somewhere in about the 16th century, but under the patronage of the person Desiderius Erasmus, right? So those are 3 serious historical points that I don't think we could just like sweep under the carpet because it's very serious, you know. So is the investigation of like some of these issues is what I would think we would get into today. So give thanks for I just outlay the reasoning as it is, which part it reach right now. Give thanks.
Right, give thanks. And let me just ask, so and the, I mean, I don't want to say contention, but the difference of opinion last time was that because well, you did bring up Walter Williams again, but I think the last time Rasquamai was a bit should I say distancing himself a little bit.
Well, I would think he, not so much that he distancing himself, but more that he's saying that it have other persons that could corroborate the narrative of Walter Williams, you know. So I think that is where it was.
Right. Well, King, I say, as you know yourself, and I must say, even knowing Rasquamai and Rasta, and I think maybe what Rasquamai was saying, because I remember when we started to, I would have delved into some of the works prior, but I remember when Rasquamai and Rasta started to speak a lot about Walter Williams, and at that time many people didn't even know who they're talking about. But I assume, I don't want to speak for Rasquamai, but I believe maybe what he was saying is that, yeah, I mean, we got a good foundation from him, as most of us would get from other things. But I guess he was saying he would have evolved, you know, and check other sources for himself, because he himself said he knows the man personally and he even disagrees with some of his points. So that's what I was gathering. And I wish he was here to just clarify.
Yeah, well, I can bring a little bit of clarity to what Kwama's position is.
I'm sure.
Right. You see, Kwama is of the opinion that Ankomo probably just looking at us as individual who just go and just take whatever Walter Williams said and never really do any research into it. So he was trying to defend against that view of himself, right? And he highlighted the fact that because he and Walter Williams, I mean, for probably about for 2 years or so, both of them been in contact. He go and visit with Walter Williams and talk with him and so on and things like that. And they have points that we would have brought up that we are not very straight about, that he wasn't very convinced by the explanation, and not very clear about the explanation that he would have received from Walter, right? So that's what he was trying to indicate by that you interpreted now as distancing himself. He's not really distancing himself, but just to show that we approach the information with objectivity, We don't just go on Walter, just say whatever he say, and we just go off and run with it. Of course, just like Ankoma Jed, we would have gone and researched into things, and a lot of the information that we're finding in the mainstream, quite frankly, doesn't really support the narrative that Walter put forward. You understand? So if you're just going to go by the information provided to you in the mainstream, you most likely will not agree with Walter. That's if you're looking for actual information from some other source that he would have sought in order for you to accept or give merit to his argument. I can show you, for example, I have a WhatsApp group called Upper Room Reasoning and Meditation, right? And there is an Adventist preacher guy. He's Newton. He's a Newton related to Lamin, and then guys are into politics and so from Pata. And I will be reasoning about the Christ and what I understand about the Christ doctrine and so on, based on my own experience in growth coming forward. The arguments that I put forward, the reason that I put forward, are nothing that he can contest. There's nothing that he can say, no, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, my reasoning makes sense in and of itself. His problem, however, in accepting it is because, well, the position that I have is not supported by scriptures, some other extra biblical kind of source or something like that. So he have a difficulty with weighing the sense of what I'm saying in and of itself. So except he can get me making reference to, okay, Shakespeare, William Shakespeare said in his book so, whatever, that support whatever position I have. Now, if I have done something like that, somehow it would have been accepted, because it seems that's the kind of approach that is used in academia. If I'm going to reason something on the merit of my own common sense and so on, somehow it doesn't carry as much weight as if I were to reference some scholar like Wallace Burge or somebody like that. And that's the way they do it in academia. So when you don't run into that kind of reference when you're dealing with Walter Williams information, it tends to leave you a little bit insecure about going out and making the pronouncement, taking certain position based on his reasoning. So I'll tell you why his reasoning have some credence for me personally. He does a couple of things for me. For one, he helped to show that there are two versions of history, which we talked about that here before. And even Iodonis, in referencing certain historic information from the Ethiopia tradition, say that they also have these two categories as well of history. All right? So Walter helped me to see that. I mean, he explained that. And then when I go and put my mind to things and look into the information, because I need to find ways of explaining this thing independent of whatever explanation Walter gives. In other words, my head must be able to process what's going on and see things for myself that I can put on the table that will have weight. One of the glaring things that come out to me in terms of separating tradition from actual history is that matter that I usually relate about Christianity, the history of Christianity and how it started. And each time that I've been saying this, nobody ever respond, nobody ever counter what I'm saying by stating, why is it that a tradition that started with Jewish children, I mean, Jesus is said to be a Jew in the scripture, and all of his disciples and so on are his peers, Jewish guys of his generation. And we're saying, well, if the tradition start that way with Jesus born, he rides up in the earth with a great message, and then he was crucified, and his disciples continue that message to the four corners of the earth. If that is the story, then we would expect that the authority in terms of this doctrine, this Christian doctrine, would be with Jewish people. We would expect to see all the early church fathers and so on being Jewish. There's no particular logical reason why for the first 400 to 500 years of Christianity, the patriarchs and bishops were ancient Egyptian descendants. There's no explanation for that. I've never seen an
I hope
explanation.
somebody can explain that before the night out. I write that down.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Huh?
No, we can. We can.
can.
Hold on for a moment.
Okay, okay. Let me continue.
Feel free.
When you reach to that point where it's time for you to present, then you can explain to me why is it that for the first 400 to 500 years of Christianity, the bishops and patriarchs of the tradition were all Egyptian descendants? Why is it that the earliest part, except for the Bible tradition, the Jews are completely absent, it would seem, from the Christian tradition? Somebody can explain that one as we go along. All right. So that's one the glaring part that. Hello.
We can say Paul. We could say Jacob called James, who was crucified by the Romans. It's all documented. He was the first bishop of Jerusalem. You know, we're talking about the first century into the first century. You're talking about the hijack that occurred hundreds of years later on. You know, with this coining of the phrase Christianity. For those who believed in the Messiah, which was a Jewish or Israelite thing, they were Hebrews or related to the Hebrews, and Judeans are called Jews from the very beginning. You jump from 323 as Serapis, and then we go 600 years later, and we're to believe that these two events are directly connected. And then we edit out the fact that you say Jesus and his brethren were Jews, and there's a whole history of that particular movement, even testified by Josephus. You know, the Messiah movement that in translation is Christ. We speak English. So if we were to say what that word means, we'll say anointed. Does that change the fact of what we're representing, what we're talking about? So in the sense of Christianity, as we get to know it today, this is coming down through a Western Gentile tradition, but the early church was a Jewish, we could say, messianic tradition or Jewish church. The earliest church was a Jewish church.
Yes, but you're reporting this from traditional information.
We're reporting this for historical information.
Okay, what is source?
We have source of Roman history. We have source of Christian history or of Jewish history. We have source of Talmud. We could get into Talmud. We could get into Mishnah, where it all testifies of a character that aligns with the one we know as Jesus Christ.
No. I'm not. Hold on.
How much have you studied Jewish writing?
No. Hold on. I'm specifically talking about why, when we read Christian history for the first 400 to 500 years, all the bishops and patriarchs, that predominantly the bishops and patriarchs were ancient Egyptian descendants.
From whose perspective? And at what point in time? Are we going back to the first century?
What do you mean from whose perspective?
Were they Egyptians in the first century? Okay, what I mean by whose perspective? From whose perspective of history? I've read books by Europeans and you know, like from European Christianity, and then I read books from Ethiopian tradition and other Eastern Oriental church tradition that is vastly different on a lot of fundamental points. We're talking about
this is a simple matter. This is a simple matter. We're talking about the first set of patriarchs and bishop of the tradition for the first 400 to 500 years are predominantly ancient Egyptian descendants.
Who was the first? Okay, you have to give me a timeline, because I recognize that what a lot of you do is the timeline. Give me a timeline of this. Who was the first Egyptian bishop that you can point to?
And the timeline.
And the timeline.
One thing I want to quickly put in, right? Remember,
Yes,
if it was last program or the program before that, I did also show that all them places you hear about in the New Testament, all of them up in Asia Minor, in Turkey, and them places, you know, the Cappadocian and the Ephesians and the all of the letters, what they say Paul write to this one and that one, is letters to places in Asia Minor, where they call Turkey now, which is under the it's come like the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman provinces kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that's also important, right? If you're thinking in the primary document, New Testament thing, whatever, you want to see that all of these congregations are so-called Christians, what they write into in the Bible is all in places like in a Turkey. And I'll show it before I could pull it. I'll probably pull it up a little later if we need any further clarification. But
okay, tell you what. With all due respect, you know, I like the conversation, but just so we don't lose the track, let's make Rasta finish off his original points. Even if he touch upon what y'all were talking about, to clarify his point, it's all right. And then everyone will get a chance. But you don't know now, the reasoning is good enough. So never be afraid for a night to ask a question or kind of excuse or come in. But just for the respect.
Precisely.
Yes.
Can I say this? Just to what our brother Ankoma Jed said.
True.
So we look at the early testimony of Rastafari, which say they're Ethiopian and Ethiopian related. Yet when people look at history, they're going to find it in Jamaica, they're going to find it in America and England, far apart from Ethiopia. Does that make it any less legitimate? Because testimonies were made abroad. I yield.
Understand the point where I bring there, but I would still think that our modern situation different because we are telecommunications and things like that, where the world turn it us. You know, where
ain't nothing new on the
a little bit a smaller place and things, so information travel faster and them kind of thing there. So in the ancient world, is probably more geolocated. You would have to send a letter off to a man to let him know where going and thing like that.
Okay, to that particular point, the same thing was so with Rastafari today in the 21st century is different than Rastafari in the 20th century. We have more technology today from the 90s going into the the 20s, the 2000s and everything. What I'm trying to say is the technology is more now. But in the earlier days of Rastafari, you know, it still was much similar to then. We still had people writing books and mailing them off, you know, to ones. We still had like snail mail, so forth and so on. We didn't have the technology we have today. Back, you know what I mean? When Rastafari, the movement first, you could say, started to shine in the West. I believe the origin was Ethiopia. You know, the origin of Rastafari is Ethiopia. I yield because I do want to hear our brother Ras Isan.
Yeah.
Apologies for my interruption there, brother. But when you mentioned that, I have to just say a couple of words.
Okay.
Pray to I.
Yes, good spirited reason. But yes, King Sir, go ahead. Let me not say nothing extra.
Yeah, so well, what I was saying, listen,
take your time.
Personally, I go through the research, right? And I go through following the information like everybody else. You go to the Bible, he tell you about Antioch and all these kind of things, because as I said in previous program, there is a certain connecting point where the mythology now go in, was interwoven into real history, right? I've said these things in past program too.
Oh, yeah,
There's a certain point that happens.
Yeah.
Now, when I go and I look into the information, as I say, when I go and simply just search like Athanasius, for example, if I just put Athanasius' name in Google, I will get information show up. Most time the picture icon that we get is a European picture. All right. No, when you look like that, there's no proof when you look up information like that, that Athanasius is even an Egyptian descendant. There's no proof of that. But when you type in Melkite Coptic, then you find all of the name of people like John Chrysostom that they refer to as the father of homilies and so on. When you look in the Melkite information, the search in the Melkite, then you find Athanasius, Sylvester, all of these individuals show up. You understand? And the Copts are Egyptians. So anything that you see show up with these Copts, you're talking about an Egyptian tradition. And that's what I run into when I do the research. So then I realize that the argument that Walter Williams put forth when he said that all of these ecumenical council meetings were really theological arguments happening between descendants, ancient Egyptian descendants. There were some carrying their argument on behalf of the authority. And those would represent them that from the time of Ptolemy I had agreed to work along with the invader and create the Serapis icon. You understand? So you had that split. When I go through the information, John Chrysostom and a number of these earlier patriarchs, the ones who are authoritative on Christianity when you read the Christian history today, coming through Rome and everything, they were ancient Egyptian descendants, not Jewish people. There were no Jews. I mean, literally, when you check the Christian history, except when you go into tradition, there are no Jews mentioned having anything to do with Christianity too tough. As a matter of fact, Jesus was only said to be a Jewish person when they bring out the book of John in 1611. Prior to that, he was not looked upon as a Jewish. He was not declared a Jew in no kind of writing. You understand? So you see, when you check, as I say, we talk about that and we pretty much agreed, yes. We have two types of history. The one thing we have not done, however, is to determine how we apply both. How we apply both forms of history. Where do we say, okay, no, this is tradition and this is real history? Is everything now all tradition? So whatever information that was created mythologically and so forth, then we're going to accept all of that because there have been a whole set of embellishment of this information to make it more and more wholesome. So what I say now, I see when I question certain things, when I even look at the donation of Constantine, we hear all kind of talk about Constantine got converted because there was a war between him and Maximilian. And when going to war, a star, a sign of the cross, I think they said, appear in the sky that gave him some kind of directive and he triumphed in that war. And they're saying that by that particular event, he was persuaded and became a Christian. And now we're hearing that he was never a Christian, that he was always practicing paganism and all kind of different things like that. But they use that story and this whole thing about the Edict of Milan. They use that as a way to explain away what was going on with the exterior Coptic community, who was the pressure group that was being persecuted during the time of Nero. And I sent a video, a short video, it's just 2 minutes. In the I sent that video in the roundtable chat. As I said, the video is about 2 minutes. That actually captured that same idea. It's just telling you what happened from Ptolemy I, what they were trying to achieve with this icon in having a god with Greek features and so on. They were trying to strike a balance between the Greeks and the Egyptian in terms of the creation of this god Serapis. So Serapis have a European features, but he had an Egyptian name. The video telling you about that and telling you about the persecution and everything come right down until when they have the first Nicene conference, telling you that this god of Serapis was instated since in Ptolemy I, and that held up, coming all the way down into the late BC period before the time change over to AD. You understand? So there's actually information showing you that you had things going on from Ptolemy I come down. There was this Serapis icon, and that is when the Roman come into prominence, when they overthrow the Greek. Then that Serapis thing was cancelled out, and then the Christ, Christos, emerged after that. The video that I sent highlighted this. You understand? So we, as I say, the information, when it comes to the actual history, you do not get a lot of support of that, because in the claims of nation, you understand, these traditional history is put forth, as I've said in earlier program, as a way of the nation making certain claims. And the way how claims work, if you cannot dispute my claim, then even if I made it up, my claim stands as truth. You see? So when we reach a point in history where they were started to create nation state with constitution and ancient history of each nation and so on, there is where all the mythology and all these things came into play. And so most of what we read today as history, as actual history, is actually traditional history. And as I say, that show up when you look into situation like, as I say, for the first 400 to 500 years of Christian history, the bishops and patriarchs of the tradition were all ancient Egyptian descendants. There's no particular explanation for the prominence of Egyptian in the Christian tradition. And because of these elements, it gives credence, in my opinion, to the narrative that Walter Williams put forward, because Walter Williams is on this person that seemed to show you, at least in some kind of remote way, how history unfolds in progression from the time of Alexander coming forward down to the time of Constantine. I've not come across any other scholar that gave you chronological breakdown of what was happening during those days. One of the things that I find out is that the persecution that was going on against the exterior Coptic community. The video spoke about that when he talked about the people in the secular community were not accepting the Serapis. That's a part of the reason why the Romans got rid of it too. Because they had problem with getting people in the secular community to accept it. You see? And Walter narrative explain all of that right down until when they have the Donatist schismatism, when Mensurius gave up the manuscript rather than suffering martyrdom as his ancestor did to protect the information. And that caused a split in the exterior Coptic community that were being persecuted from the time of Ptolemy I because they weren't worshiping this new created god of Serapis. That's what they were persecuted for. And it was after Sylvester I, after Constantine broke the deal with Sylvester I, and Sylvester requested certain things to work along with Constantine, that the whole persecution of the exterior Coptic community ended. That's how it ended. But they use the explanation in the traditional information now to say that the reason why that stopped is because Constantine becomes saved, and I guess get empathetic towards the Christians. That's the explanation they're giving now. You see? But as I say, Walter, explanation. Give account for why you have so much Egyptian elements in the early Christian. Sylvester I was an ancient Egyptian, and so was generally all of the bishops that attended these ecumenical council meetings. There were no European up in there. None. There were Greek-speaking Egyptian descendants. Anyway, I'll stop there. As I say,
but let me ask you, quick, you used the term a while ago, and I do want you to, pass it on, but I still have to, you used the term a while ago that they were ancient Egyptian, because outside of just the theological reasoning, when you get into ethnicity and these different things, because the question might be exactly what is and the Egyptian of the time that we're speaking of, because when you use the term ancient Egyptian a moment ago, it actually, it taught me that, okay, because I know from my understanding that, for example, if you say Egyptian today, you know what you see. But we understand how that happened, even from about 685 also AD, I think it is, when the Arabs really came in and did a number on that part of Africa. But you're talking of prior to that. But though at the same time, from my understanding of history, there was a strong amalgamation even taking place in that part of the world, ancient Kemet, Egypt, where that is why you have a lot of Greeks who are coming in. When people take over country, the nation come in and a lot of intermixing and so was taking place. So the impression I get, because even if you look at the art, although, art have a lot of propaganda. For example, Saint Anthony then, the great Egyptian Saint Anthony, some pictures have him lily white, but then there are those that have him much darker, and some outrightly, not the conscious community, old pictures, some outrightly have him black. The same thing with Alexander, although we see him as black, there are pictures where I see, not Alexander, pardon, Arius. There are places where you see St. Nicholas slapping him, and both of them look like Europeans. But I'm just saying, but we know how that works. We know in artwork, people do what they feel and what they imagine. But I'm just trying to bring to a light what were the Egyptians at the time that we're talking. And if we could just give it a date for the sake of the audience again, the first set of bishops and first set of clergy in Egypt. We're talking of 4th century AD. Am I correct? 3rd, 4th century AD?
4th century, because Alexander conquered Egypt in 332.
BC.
BC.
Yes, 332 BC, correct.
BC. So the ethnicity at that time, just check it. Is the ancient Egyptians black people?
Black people. When you look up the when you go in the Melkite Coptic information and you see this guy they call John Sisuskum, that is referred to in Christianity as the father of homilies. When you see him, you can see by his features and hair texture and so on that he is not a European. At least in some of the picture that I see. If you just type in these guys' name without put Melkite Cop to it, you will see a different picture character. It's a different illustration you'll get. You'll get a European feature. Only when you put Melkite Cops, then you see the very same name, but then you're seeing the pictures that showing you that they're of a different ethnicity. They are mixed at best. At worst, sorry.
Let me yes, King Cypher, we come into the eye, but I know Rasta Adonis wanted to kind of come back on a lot of what was being said and what he was saying before. So I don't know if
good point. Good point there about the ethnicity, because we have to recognize the Greeks, the Ptolemies, they were there, the Greek influence, as Rasta Cern mentioned, with the Osiris, Apis, Serapis, all of that, different temples that were built. They were very much in the mix. The Greeks were in the mix. And not saying that it it eliminated any Black or native Egyptian blood or influence. But we can clearly see from even many of their cartouches, like not cartouches, what they call it when they bury them. They have these pictures of how some of the, the ruling Greeks,
Yes.
look. So we can see that there was admixture. So the admixture even later on even got worse over time. Yes, there were ethnic, Egyptians like the Aswan people who were more melanated and were connected with the ancient roots, but we cannot dismiss the influence of the Ptolemies and the Greeks from 320 something BC. And then when we scroll all the way to AD, that's 600 years of potential influence, because the Ptolemies went into the ADs too. Even when the Romans came up, they still had a little bit of rulership. They still had influence. So even the modern Egyptians today, they lie and say, oh, they are actually the ones from the ancient times. And we see Egypt being overrun by different conquerors that came in and, assimilated their ways with what they learned of Egyptian ways, even down to the Arabs of today, where I have there's some Arabs who are doing their own archaeology and Egyptology, and they're looking at the Quran to explain the hieroglyphs. I mean, this is really an amazing thing that we're seeing. I pause on that, but the influence was there from earlier, even in the Ptolemy time.
All right, to give thanks. Rasta Selassie, anything you want to add to this in-depth reasoning before even?
Yes, family. Yes, I give thanks. Well, yes, I looked into the matter a little bit. And
I'm going to hold on there, before you give us the meat of the matter. Let me just, before, I know you might give us some depth there. Let me just give a few words from our sponsors there. You don't know. Important. Go ahead. Rastafari. Blessed love, royal family. Honorable Priest Isaac here. I am inviting you to the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge Royal Business Webinar. It is about time, family, for us in the conscious space to motivate ourselves to become a more business-minded culture. Join us for 3 days, the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd day of December for a life-changing, I repeat, a life-changing experience. 3 p.m. each day, Radio Anu TV, YouTube, and Radio Anu International. For more information, visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. The Royal Business Webinar. I will see you there. Yes, Royal family, give thanks, just a reminder to each and every one to be on board. Yes, King Cypher Selassie.
Yes, family, give thanks. Immediately when I listened to Aboriginal Rasta Adoni, not Adoni, it's Rasta Isa, where he said that there's 2 different traditions coming in. He said there's these people who look like Egyptians, and then there's these Romans, which, so you're getting 2 different images of different people. Well, if you go into Ethiopia, you learn the Ethiopian church history, they will tell you that there were the early church fathers. They were called the desert fathers. They lived in monasteries in the desert, in the Egyptian desert. So this is the 1st and 2nd century, according to the Ethiopian teaching.
Because Saint Anthony is amongst those. Oh no, you said 1st centuries. Well, I was asking.
Well, yeah, 1st and 2nd century. I say 1st and 2nd century. That's where all of the. They say, I mean, I'm not really up on the history, but I know that is the general teaching out of the church. Right? I won't be giving any names, but I know that is the general teaching out of the church, which is coming out of Ethiopia, which is the Coptic. Ethiopia was under the Coptic church for 1600 years. Well, Coptic comes from Egypt, Alexandria. You know, that's where these people came, who were the Gnostics, the people who had the Gnostic Christianity with the knowledge. Gnostic is of gnosis, of knowledge. So what did they have knowledge of? It's star law, you know. And one thing I will also say is that Arian, when I've looked up Arian, Ras and Comajed said to me last week when I was saying about the spelling of Arian being A-R-I-A-N, and he said they're not the same people as the A-R-Y-A-N, the Arian. Well, then when I've looked at Serapis and this doctrine coming out of the Serapis doctrine, there's an Arian concerned with that. But that's not Arius. Arius and the Arian doctrine is different to this Arian, who is a Greek historian who was born about 180 to 190 AD, going into 200 and odd to about 240 AD, as far as it says in the books. So this Arian is spelled A-R-R-I-A-N. So are we saying that the Arian doctrine of Arius, the Arian doctrine of Arius, is it the same doctrine as what we're dealing with these Greeks, Arian of the Serapis? Because they're different. There's a different, as far as not that I'm concerned, as far as I've read, I've just done a little research. It's not the same. It's not the same problem. And also, because I don't want to go too deep into this anyway, you mentioned John Chrysostom. That John Chrysostom was actually a book which was lost to the world, which was given to what was brought into the world by His Majesty. He refound it was lost information. His Majesty recovered this information, and when he went to the Christ College, Cambridge, to receive his doctorate of law, they said, "We have here amongst us this great Haile Selassie. He knows more than all the ancients. He knows more than the Orientals, and he has given us the John Chrysostom book." His Majesty found that book and he made it available to the world. So he was mentioned for that. That's one thing. And also the fact of why you might wonder why Osiris, or Osiris and Apis, which became this different religion, this different Serapis. Osiris and Apis became Serapis. Well, Osiris, the age of Osiris was ended 2455 BC, when the age of Amen began. And then there's the age of Christianity, which is the Pisces, the fish, where we're talking about Jesus Christus, when he came into the play. So now we've got the story where it's come, time has progressed, and we've gone into the shepherd king, King David, of the time of the shepherd and the sheep and the goat, and the age of Arius, the lamb, and then we've gone into the fish. Well, prior to that was Osiris, which is the cult of the bull. So that now is an expired, it is an expired time frame. So when the Greeks tried to introduce an expired doctrine that's already gone, and which we also read about Moses, when he went and destroyed the golden calf, we can see that the reason he destroyed it, because he was come in the time of Amen, in the time of Arius, in that age. So that's why he would have destroyed the bull, the golden calf, because it was from the previous, whether it's allegory, whether it's true, he's destroying the knowledge of the previous age, the age of Amen, the age of Taurus, which is the bull cult. So this has now come forward into the Serapis, because the Apis bull is a bull, the Apis is a bull. So it's out of time, it's out of frame. So this is where the conflict comes in, because it's now coming into the age of Christ, which is the fish. So you see, it's anachronistic. It's something like they're trying to turn back in time, because they're trying to teach ancient Egyptian religion. You know, I won't say any more than that. I'll leave it right there, but that puts it in a framework. But I would like to say also, but is Arius and this Arian the same doctrine? I don't think it is. I think there's a confusion of time. I think there's a confusion of the chronology there. That 600-year gap is a big gap, and especially talking about when you're talking about the racial makeup of a people also, because if you think about in 500 years, there will be 16 generations of 30 years, roughly. 16 generations. Well, if, you know, I come from a mixed race family, and if I look at my family from different, you know, within 2 and 3 generations, my family's gone white and it's gone jet black in 2 or 3 different generations.
Okay.
You know? In 4 generations, if they keep going back, you wouldn't even know, you don't know which way they come from. You know, they wouldn't know there's a mixed heritage in here in 4 generations, you couldn't even know it. So I'm just saying that as a point of view. And now we're talking about 16 generations. 500 years is 16 generations. So the racial makeup of a people can very, very much alter. I can tell you that. Give thanks.
Yes, Rastafari.
Yes, yeah, I'll just like to point out something quickly from Rastafari mention about Arius and Arianism being like 2 separate things. He's correct with that. What actually happened within the process, Arius is the one who initially had some objection about the icon god of Serapis. I'm saying that. All right. He's the one that initially had some issues. And so the heat was turned up on him because of these issues. But after that, even during the time of the Council of Ephesus, when they now introduced the Theotokos, the mother of God theology, there were 2 Melkite Coptic bishops that stood up and opposed that. And they opposed that, and they were also classified as Arians. Arians. So what they actually did, they used the term Arians to apply to anybody that have any issue with any of the theological position that is officially taken. So that's why you have the difference between Arius only said one thing. He was saying that this icon is dissimilar from the Father.
Sorry,
His argument was about the nature of this icon. He wasn't talking about no Theotokos. Theotokos did not come up in the argument during Arius's time. But these 2 bishops that opposed the Theotokos were also considered and branded as Arians as well. So the title seemed to apply to anybody that have any problem with the official proceedings of things. Just to support what Rastafari was saying about there being a difference between Arian and this Arius and this Arianism.
Yes, King and Jen, what are you saying on this? A lot was said, you know, from the time you open the back.
Yes.
Yes,
but all right. We're gonna have to decipher if it is that all the people in the Nicene Council was Egyptians. We gotta check that. And yeah. And I think instead of an icon, I think it was a theological reasoning about, just like what I said last time, is about if the Son was equal with the Father towards the concept of the Trinity and them kind of things. So it was, and Arius was a Christian as well, along inside the fold with the whole of them too. In fact, it had a portion of theologians was following Arius as well, right?
Can I stick a pin, King? just quickly,
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I noted, right, from the position that advance now as representing Arius's position. They're actually selling Arius now as a Christian, like he was already a Christian, like he was already in that.
He was a Christian.
But he has a certain different view while being a Christian.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the Walter side of the argument suggests that Arius was not.
Well, that's
because
right.
the problem that they were having was to get the people in the secular community who were supported by some of the bishops who decide that they're not working along with the invaders. You understand? Arius was among those descending people. He was not really a Christian.
Well, I question that, Bridget, because what about the creed? What about the Arius Creed then? That's a Christian document. You say is that a forgery? It's not real?
Well, hear this. I can't go out and say officially that it is a forgery.
Well,
you
what
understand?
are you suggesting?
I man would not do that. But what I gather from, as I say, the narrative that I get from Walter Williams, and in an isolated, it connect with the outplay of history in other areas. This is part of the reason that persuade me personally, right? And it makes sense to me. Sylvester I is written up in today's history of Christianity as being some like an ordinary person. Like he wasn't really too central even to the Nicene Conference. All right? He is played down in that version of things. You see? But if the video that I sent in the group, as I say, if you read through that, they're telling you that there was a battle with the people in the secular community ever since Alexander took over in terms of observing this new God that farmed since Ptolemy I and existed all the way down until the Roman came. The video highlighted that. They were having problem getting these people to recognize this icon. The persecution that was going on was over them not recognizing the Serapis image.
Yeah, but
it was the Council of Nicaea that changed the Serapis image.
No, Russ, but that's 300 years later.
Yeah.
300 years later.
Yeah. Christianity is how much now? How much years old now?
Well, it's supposed to be
2000. But when it's
2023,
I mean, 300 years is not a lot when you consider.
But when you say 300 years cipher, what explain a bit more what you're insinuating.
Yeah, well, what he's saying about the Serapis bull, the Serapis bull was created by the Ptolemies. The Ptolemies were the BC. They, by the time at the end of the BC period, the Romans came in, so now there was a dual, Greco-Roman society at the time the Romans came in.
But so we got like 600 years.
Precise that.
Yes,
I want to afford back my time because to talk now.
Of course.
Okay, respect.
Yeah.
I know if you could give me to share screen.
Yes,
Isaac.
We come there a second. Let me see now. Hold on, go again now.
From Ancona Dread.
Yeah, you can talk while you're looking for this thing here.
No, some good points he mentioned in his intro when he just started. Some very good points about what the evidence points to the theological disputes were, concerning not so much about an icon in that sense. That was maybe back 600 years ago. 600 years ago was an icon, but 600 years later, it was regarding, you say, divinity and relation of Jesus as the Son to the Father and what that meant or should mean for those Christian communities. But the first council was at Jerusalem. I just want to point that out. And one of the early Egyptian fathers, Clement of Alexandria, he points out in his documentation that James or Jacob, the brother of the Lord and one of the disciples, he was the bishop. So the first bishop was actually under what we can call a Jewish Christianity. But I yield that until we get into that. I want to hear Ankoma Jed and see the presentation. Just wanted to share that right there. Give thanks.
Yes,
the historical origin of Christianity.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's Christianity? Gentile Christianity or Jewish Christianity?
No. I pull up the book. Let's see in my screen.
Yes, we're seeing it good. We're seeing it good.
Mm.
This Walter Williams representation of Arius.
Looks good.
Yeah. The Alexandrian Presbyter Arius. Yeah. You see here, the Donatist schismatic controversy, along with the donation of Constantine and the strong statement by Arius, caused the Council of Nicaea I in 325 ABCE to be convened in Bithynia, modern Iznik, northwestern Turkey, in northeast Africa. Right? There's a note we have to make there. Right? This meeting was held in the palace of Constantine. The Melkite Coptic Egyptians were now an organized council of hand-picked bishops and clergy. They were organized under the new head, Melkite Bishop Sylvester I, who called for this council meeting to be convened. Now let us proceed into each council meeting, but remember, each one of these council meetings was convened by the Melkite Coptic Egyptian papas, bishops, and clergy, except for the Council of Constantinople, 553 ACE, which was called for by the Roman Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. These council meetings were convened because the opposing resistance of the exterior Coptic religion community, who rejected the image of Serapis as God and repudiated Sylvester I for accepting the donation of Constantine. Keep in mind, these council meetings were convoked to make the created creature, Serapis, into the Messiah, Christos Christ, Jesus the Christ. Right, so I will just leave that there, but even from the start there, I don't know if I would accept that Turkey, Iznik Turkey, go be considered as Northeast Africa. If you over the height, you understand? So it come like that is how he could build the argument now that the people, all them councils which take place in Turkey, is how he's saying it was some, like it come like is Melkite African Christian or whatever it is, the reasoning. I know the item follow it, but I'm now saying it.
No, let me explain for you, right? During that time period, and this is...
Let me just remind, just quickly, we are going to seal up approximately 9:30, yeah? So we have about 15. Yes, bless it.
Okay, let me quickly explain the part, Ankomo, right? Based on information that I got. And this was also supported by Israel Finkelstein research on that same area where I call Palestine now, right? Because in Israel Finkelstein research, he find that during the 13th century BC, that where we know present-day Israel is today, it was an Egyptian province. So it stands to reason that that whole area that we now call the Middle East, and you have a lot of people that put forward this position as well too, that whole area was a part of Africa, right? So Walter is saying Northeast Africa because he's including that area that go all the way up to Turkey by Asia Minor as part of what Africa was back in those times, during those timelines. And I tell you now, I watch this thing, right? Where I am looking at, they talk about Egypt, right? In the Bible, they talk about the children of Israel being enslaved down in Egypt. Let's go with the argument, right? Now, Egypt as described, right? Now we talk about now the 13th century BC, because this is Moses' time, right? And they're saying, okay, the children of Israel.
Palestine was a part of Egypt.
Yeah, but hear this. The Bible is saying that the children of Israel were captive in Egypt. And then they came out of Egypt in an exodus and go to Palestine.
But that means
Now let's bear two things in mind. That area, as we just say, according to Israel Finkelstein, where they call Palestine, that was also an Egyptian province during the time. Right? So if the Bible is referring to Egypt, saying that the children of Israel exodus out of Egypt and go over there to Palestine, that means they are describing in the Bible, they are describing Egypt based on modern geographics. Modern. When I say modern, I talk about modern because they're describing Egypt as we know Egypt today territorially in the Bible. And the Egypt that they're describing in the Bible supposed to be an Egypt that in existence way back from the 14th, 13th century, them time period, they're way back behind it. You understand? So you can see that anachronism is going on. Because if you're describing the children of Israel as exodusing from Egypt to go over to Palestine, as we know it today in modern geographics, that means you're not describing the Egypt of the ancient world, where the boundaries were different. You're describing it according to the modern setting, which can only mean that the text was written in modern time.
Fire. 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 That's clever.
You see where I come from there?
That's clever. That's clever.
So all them little nuances that I man just check out when I man go through the information, and so I may check little stuff like that. Because you describe these nations in the Bible according to modern geographics. And I know just the other day that we start up the creation of nation states and have boundaries defined and all these kind of things. This is a very recent thing. But you describe an ancient setting that is way before that.
Okay. To the whole.
Hold on, let me just get a small point. Yeah, I see the screen. I know the I was watching the geography you were showing.
Okay, good. Respect.
No, you see in the screen.
The map, the globe.
The globe was showing. Yeah. Up here is Nick. Up here, close up here in Turkey. It's a far stretch. So I think now this is where you're talking about the area Israel and thing, but quite up here is Turkey. So I think it's a little stretch in some of the thing. Look, isn't it quite up here by this body of water up here? You understand? Yeah, so it's a kind of thing. So I think within trying to come like it kind of might be even a kind of cultural colonialism in a way to kind of just remove these people and say, well, all of them there was let me say Egyptian, or whatever it is, then quite up there. Yeah, they go what I'm saying. So I ain't too sure about that part.
Okay.
And then
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go.
Can I share something that might help to contextualize that? I'd like to return to the point about that Isern brought out. Interesting, but to this point about Turkey, Turkey, modern Turkey, has been seeking to get entry into the EU. Turkey, what they call the region called Turkey or Asia Minor on older maps, Asia Minor, is not European enough. It's interesting. They're not really European enough. For the longest, they've been trying to get admission into the EU, but the EU still kind of hesitates. Culturally and scientifically and on different levels of their society, they are very advanced. A lot of people go to Turkey to get, buy, shop, get medical procedure. I'm talking about Black people go to Turkey, but they're not considered to be European. They almost like considered to be like your gray brother, not quite Black, not quite white. Because if we study that region that Asia Minor and Turkey is, and we look at the Bible, since the brother brought in the Bible, it says Nimrod, the son of Cush, he established his kingdom way over there in what they call Mesopotamia. And we do see ancient Black influence way over there. The region called Turkey, biblically and also according to ancient Egypt, they both verify this historical data. It was ruled at one time by Hittites. Now, if we take the Bible narrative, the Hittites are descendants of Canaan, and the Canaanites are descendants of Ham. So if we look at it in that view, perhaps, I don't agree with a lot of things Walter Williams, some of his conclusions, but on that particular point, I could see what he might have been working with, because Turkey is not quite regarded as being, quote, white enough. If you go into a little more research on this, Turkey been trying to get admission to the EU, but they kind of stall them, so forth and so on, because they also are Islamic. They're almost like half-half in a sense. But historically speaking, we can see a Black, or we could say African, or even Egyptian or Ham connection to the Canaanites, ancient Hittites, were all considered from a biblical view to be Black people. As far as that Exodus stuff, well, Palestine or Palestinia, as it's in the translation, is one place, but they were going into the land of Canaan. And if you look at correct maps, there was the Philistines that were the coastline where we have Gaza today, and then Judah Judah and the Philistines both were in the same land. Two states, I don't know about that. But then you had the Phoenicians, you had other peoples who took pieces of that land. And to the brother's point about Palestine or the land was, how can you say, the land was policed, you could say, by the ancient Egyptians. Because the ancient Egyptians, they got a lot of resources. They got cedar wood, they got other type of products from there. But the interesting thing is this: after the Sea Peoples came and the collapse of the Bronze Age into the Iron Age, after Ramses defeated some of the Sea Peoples, he actually took the Pelitet and he placed them there in Palestine to guard the coast against other Sea Peoples. So, and that's that book that you recommended, Isern. What's that book called? The Original Torah. It gives that historical fact. But I just wanted to say, Brother Ankoma's reasoning, I'm not saying Walter Williams is right on some of his conclusions, but he might be regarding that region as being part of Africa if he looks at the biblical and some of the historical data that links the Hittites, to the Canaanites, and therefore the Canaanites were descendant of the Hamites, and that's the Egyptian-Ethiopia connection there. I yield.
Rastafari,
great point. I wanted to...
They're coming right now. But hear this now. These words have to be our sealing words.
Okay.
Going around.
Okay, I'll just say...
and if you can do it in a minute and a half.
Yeah. This reasoning, I would like us to really continue this.
I done saying this look like a part 4. Not to cut you, I done saying this look like a part 4, but I think I want to get Rasquama in a one-on-one still, even before the next time we come together next Thursday, but I'll see what happens. But go through.
Mm-hmm. I really wanted was to ask a question quickly while the map was there. Where was Constantinople located?
Good point. Good question.
Because maybe that will explain why the council meeting was in Iznik.
We go do that on the next episode. In the next
Wait,
respect.
so that would be a good point for segue into that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I man give thanks for the reason, of course, and I love the mood and the temperament of everybody on the panel. You understand? Everybody able to be very flexible, very open-minded, and so on, and that always lend to more progressive thinking. You understand? So really, the brotherhood here in the round table and the mood that develop over time, really concrete and really firm, you know. And I'm really happy to be a part of the whole panel, you know. This reasoning, I love the way how we approach things and come differently. In that, you know, requesting that we get down into the sources and so on. I also recognize, though, that even other scholars and researchers, it's not all the time they have a smoking gun, but they have to draw inferences and so on based on the information that they have before them, and come up with a narrative. You understand? Come up with a way of explaining how all the evidence that they have and so forth. So with me, I tend to approach things that way a lot. You understand? If I don't have the information, I'm looking to draw some inference and so forth, you know? But yeah, I man give thanks to the reasoning, and I man yield at this point for someone else to give their closing remarks. Rastafari, I love every time.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Well, I would say give thanks for the reasoning again, Rastafari thing, you know what I mean? And as to what we're reasoning about and what the thesis of Walter Williams bring forward, I think that it have a lot of creativity inside of the writing too, then, as like what the I said. So although it have values and nuggets in it, it come like it have imagination involved in it a lot too. And then some of the points, like what I laid out at the start of the talk, in terms of the chronology of religion and other things like the translation of the hieroglyphics and things. So Walter Williams, he kind of out there as a radical scholar doing his own independent scholarship, you know. One thing I don't want you to think that like if I does discredit if it not in the have all the rigor, the scholastic rigor of the Academy of the European and you know what I mean? I just read all the thing and I just use my own imagination and all of them things too, you know what I'm saying? So give thanks again, send it round, Rastafari.
You, my Lord.
Blessed King, blessed.
Anyone? King Cypher?
Yes, family, yeah, man, give thanks. Well, I would just say Rastafari, yeah, man, give thanks for the panel and for the good reasoning. But one thing that I would just say that really always concerns the thinking is the idea, you know, we're jumping very big timelines. We're jumping a couple of 100 years here, 600 years there, a couple of 100 years there. Last week when I was speaking, I was trying to put it into a framework of from the BC to the AD over the fulcrum of the central BC AD fulcrum. And now we've jumped I went from 500 BC to 500 AD approximately. And I was listening to the comments because we're dealing with our audience as well, you know, as people who we would like to bring in, you know, even into discussions, even if it's in the chat and those things, you know. And I would say when now Russ and Koma JD brought out the book of this Walter Williams, which I've never seen before. I don't even know about him, because I don't need to research into that because the I didn't know that. But one thing I did notice, it went straight from 325 AD straight into 553 AD in the same page, where they was talking about a split between the different people, you know, the different camps. We call them different camps or different, you know, different perspectives. But if we can go now to the Ethiopian quickly, though, I won't go into this deep, but the Ethiopian narrative is that in the capital of Gas, it's 451, the Council of
Chalcedon.
451 Council, I can't remember the name, but the 451 Council, where the split came between the Ethiopians and the Roman Church. So now, how does that fit into Walter Williams' jump from 325 AD to 553 AD? You know, so because he's dealing with Western Christianity. That's what they're fighting against Western Christianity. But we're talking about Eastern Christianity, you know, or Oriental Christianity, which is the Ethiopian root. From the Ethiopian root is the Coptic root, until the time of His Majesty changed it to give the church independence. So I would leave it there, and hopefully we can expand it next time. Give thanks to the Rastafari.
So like some good topics for next time. Yes, King Rasta Adonis.
Yeah. Just to seal up, I look forward to more reasoning and engagement. I had some more evidence to answer our brother, you know, in the earlier part of reasoning, but it's a good reasoning. I give thanks for the family here, and I do agree that there is, in Rasta Isern's words, there's a flexibility, and I think it's necessary to be a little flexible, you know, with, you know, the different data, so we can just see what is being laid out, you know, and as we have time until next time, hopefully we can, you know, like weigh it. It can kind of all like, you know, reach its own level. Speaking about the two forms of history he mentioned about tradition, you know, the two forms of history I brought out from, like in Amharic, there's Liber Tariq, Liber, heart of Tariq, history. It's like, it's like a novella, or it can be like not fiction, but it can be more creative.
Yeah.
And I think that Walter Williams' work is a work we should, you know, revisit, you know, respect for his scholarship, but see if, you know, we find evidence to agree or evidence to maybe upgrade some of his conclusions. I think it was sincere. What he did was sincere, you know, sincerely brought forward. But we're finding that the Ethiopian half of the story, as well as the early Judaic church called the Jewish church, is often minimalized in favor of this Western Gentile, European, Anglo-American, European tradition. But I'm going to yield. I give thanks, Priest Isaac. What a wonderful platform here for the brethren, and here for also the audience to, you know, grow in grace and in knowledge and in gnosis. I seal up with that. Give thanks.
Give thanks. And King Akom, I think you have to make me the host again one more time. And yes, family, well, give thanks. The only thing I would say, so many points. We can pick up again next round. I think the point with the Egypt part, I never really looked at it, so I got a little chuckle as I said, even when the point hit me, I got a little chuckle when you were saying because yes, we understand Palestine was considered a province, all of them areas going up there, the Levant, Lebanon, and so of Egypt, ancient Kemet. You have the time when great kings like even Ramesses, the great Ramesses II, would have gone up in the region there, Megiddo, having wars with the Assyrians and these ones, and would have conquered these regions also. So historically, that area is a province. So first of all, when you were saying, well, listen, the fact that it was a part of, technically, they would say a province of, something you would call like a colony of
an empire.
Of an empire, just like they would say them Caribbean islands were Britain extended. The sun never set on the British Empire. But what tickled me in my mind now is that, as you were saying, okay, how you can leave Egypt and go back to Egypt, which I've used them points too. But when you said that, that's to prove it's like a modern thing. And then I said, but then there's a next scripture, maybe next time we could talk about it. In Revelation, where it says, it did use the term spiritually, but it says the place that is spiritually called Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. So I remember we playing with different outlooks in a different narratives,
Mm-hmm.
accepted history, because then they don't know. I still have a different outlook of what history say and what geography say. But then if Egypt, according to Revelation, is where our Lord was crucified, was it say now? Was the Lord crucified in Kemet or Jerusalem, where he was crucified, a part of this Egypt? So and I only brought up that because of your analogy of the how it looked. But anyway, listen, there's a lot of brainstorming and thinking. Next time we can get into all of these things, I just give thanks,
The Lord was crucified in Egypt,
Yes,
according to the definition of Egypt in the context of the Bible.
In Sodom and Egypt.
Well, as it said, spiritually called. But then again, you see, a lot of things, although it didn't say spiritually, a lot of things that are written are on them levels too, even in the same book, where you take spiritually and symbolically. But anyway, give thanks. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in one unity. Holy Emmanuel, Selassie.
Rastafari.